Good evening. Welcome to this month's Whisky Me live tasting. Better late than never. We got there in the end. Hopefully, you've all received your whiskey. If not, you can join in and drink something else, and it'll be there soon. But or you can wait and save this video for later and watch it after the live streams ended. So we've got two fantastic whiskies, two repeat visits this month. We are returning to Lochlea in Scotland. Fantastic Lowland malt. We're going to try one of the latest releases from them. And then we're going to be back down in Wales for Penderyn, which I think we last featured 2.5 years ago, maybe. And we've got a great expression from them to try as well. So we're going to kick things off with Lochlea. We've got Emma Kirk coming on, and then in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we'll bring on Lee Morgan from Penderyn. Right, without further ado, here's Emma.
Hi, folks.
Good evening.
Hi.
How you doing? You're right. You're good. Thanks so much for joining us. Unusually hot weather everywhere, but even in Scotland at the moment.
Finally.
Oh, well, I think we've got a couple of good summer drams here to taste, actually. So I think it's quite nice, really. If you're going to drink whiskey in the heat, then I think this Lochlea expression from yours is a great one.
Yeah, exactly. It is our summer release, so perfect weather to be drinking this dram, and you're right. Should I kick off?
Nice. So, yeah. So, as I said to you before, we've featured Lochlea before, right back near the start when you first started putting releases out, I think. So it's always great to return to a young distillery and see how things are progressing. And if anyone was not around at Whisky Me member at that time, then do look back for the video where we did the live tasting last time, which I guess would have been a couple of years ago, because there's probably some interesting information in there. But I think it's probably worth, Emma, us kind of going from the top and maybe reintroducing the distillery and what the whole philosophy is of what you're doing up there.
Of course. I'll run through what we're about and then some new things that we're working on, because it's quite exciting times at Lochlea at the moment. So for those that don't know, Lochlea is an independent farm distillery based in the heart of Ayrshire. So we are a lowland malt, as Tristan said. Probably one of the most underpopulated areas in regards to the regions of distilleries. So quite happy to be in the lowlands. We are a farm distillery that grows all of our own barley. So that's probably our biggest unique selling point, I would say, because there's actually 2 distilleries in the whole of Scotland that grow enough barley for their full spirit production. We're one of them. So we're really passionate about that fact. We're a small team of about 15. Work very hard, and we're now in 25 different markets across the world. So we've grown at a rapid rate over the last 2 years, which is amazing to see. We are very much focused on quality liquid. So we're very much a quality over quantity distillery. So we grow around 600 tons of laureate barley a year on Lochlea Farm, and that gets us around 180 to 200,000 litres of spirit a year. But we're planning for the long haul. So a lot of that is maturing for our older stock. One of our warehouses is now completely full, which is great. And for those that were on the tasting last year, we did our core expression, our only core expression, which is our barley, which is our flagship. But this time round, we've gone for one of our limited releases. And this is our summer one called Harvest. So this is Harvest second crop. So when we say second crop, we mean the second year of our seasonal release of Harvest. So it's our farming way of saying year 2. We are basically striving as a distillery to become the only distillery in Scotland to do every part of the process on site. We do 15% of our floor maltings on site currently, but we've just been given planning permission for our new warehouse for floor malting. So by the end of next year, we'll be doing all of that on site, which is very exciting. We've just hired a new brand ambassador, so our team is expanding, which is great. And yeah, lots of exciting things to come. So the last piece of the puzzle will be a bottling line. So that will hopefully come the year after next. And then we will be the only distillery in Scotland to be 100% single site. So very exciting times at Lochlea at the moment. Shall we move on to have a wee taste of
Yeah,
draft?
yeah. I mean, that was amazing elevator pitch for the distillery in such a small amount of time. It's incredible. I did not know that about. Well, it sounds like it's quite new news getting the planning permission for the extending the floor malting. That is incredible. Because I'm trying to think, are there any distilleries that do 100% of their stuff floor malt?
Springbank do, I think, 100% of their floor maltings, but they don't grow all their own barley. So that's
no.
Where we're quite excited.
Yeah, that's why you'll be a bit different. Yeah, for sure.
So
wow, that's so cool to have that whole kind of like supply chain right from the start, and to have all that control, and I guess also to be able to kind of internally monitor what you're producing one year to the next, and kind of understand how the climate or the rainfall or different varieties of barley are then behaving when you finally get to a mature product.
Exactly. No, it's all very exciting, and the weather in Scotland is very temperamental. So this year it was quite wet when we had to sow the seed a wee bit later because it was a very wet start to the year. So it went in around the end of April. However, now the warmer weather, we've seen it really shoot up. So hopefully we're planning to harvest the crop at the end of August this year, which actually aligns with our launch of harvest third crop. So the seasons are aligning with our releases this year, which is great.
Just remind me. So you've got the harvest edition, and then are there a couple of other annual releases that you do along a similar vein? Yeah.
So our spring release is called Sowing. So Sowing release is always matured fully in first fill bourbon. That's a really light, crisp green apple flavour, lots of vanilla coming through. Breakfast dram is how I describe it. Not that I have drams for breakfast, but it goes down a treat, and it's a good one to start a wee session off with. Then for summer, we always play around with port casks for harvest. And then in autumn, we've got our fallow release, which is always a big sherry bomb. And then in winter, we do ploughing, which is our version of a peated release, but we don't have peat on the farm, and we only use ingredients from the farm. So we use ex-Isla barrels to mature our spirit in to get that kind of lovely bonfire smoke. So it's not heavily peated, very light.
That makes sense. So like the flavor profiles kind of fit the seasons as well, don't they? You've got berries in the summer, sort of stone fruit, orchard fruit in the autumn, smoke in the winter, and then you've got your kind of lighter bourbon cask release in the spring. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. So we're now on to second crop was our second year, where we've released Sowing third crop at the end of end of April this year, and the new version of harvest third crop is coming out at the end of August. Fallow coming out at the end of October, and then ploughing will probably be around March next year. We were originally going to do 4 crops of the seasonal releases, but now we've decided just to do 3 because we want to have more core expressions. So what you'll see from next year is these seasonals will disappear, so to speak, but you'll get versions of them in our core range. So once they're gone basically. So it's our trilogy of crops. Is like
they're going to become collectible. I mean, imagine in like 50 years when people look back at the then nearly 60-year-old Lochlea Distillery and go, oh yeah, you got these second crop harvest from back in their early years and everything. Yeah, there you go, everyone. Collect the bottles now while you can, because you're never going to see them again.
Exactly. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Cool.
So yeah.
So yeah, specifically about this one. So let's talk through second crop. So you mentioned port casks. What exactly is the process here in maturation? What's happened?
So because we're a young whiskey, we majority of our releases are fully matured, and then we marry the casks in together at the end. So this release is a mixture of 3 different cask types. So we've got 49% of the recipe is port, ruby and tawny. We have got 31% is oh my god, I've just had a total mind blank. So sorry. 49%.
Is it STR or bourbon?
No, bourbon is 31%, and then we've got 20%. Yeah, we've got 20% STR. That's it.
Yeah. And STR for anyone that we do talk about these casks from time to time, but do you want to just give a definition of what that is?
Of course.
Or do you want me to?
No, all good. So STR is shaved, toasted, and recharred wine casks, and we use red Rioja casks only for this. It was a process that Dr. Jim Swan came up with a few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, when sherry casks were kind of becoming a wee bit hard to get hold of. And there's all these abundance of wine casks. However, not all spirits, not all whiskies can kind of stand up against the tannins of red wine casks. So the process is to heat up. That's you shave the inside, toast it, right? That means just heating it, and rechar it. So you blacken it again in the inside, and lots of distilleries have different char levels. So that's basically the definition of STR. We're quite lucky in the fact that we get all of our casks direct from source. So we don't use coopers or anything like that. We get all our bourbon casks direct from Maker's Mark. We use only Maker's Mark bourbon casks because it reacts perfectly with our spirit. It gets the flavour. Because of the high wheat content in the mash bill, we get this lovely sweet flavour from the cask. We get all our STR port and sherry casks from Miguel Martin and Jerez. So they're really good quality casks, which is why we're able to produce a really good quality whiskey at a young age. So
nice.
Lovely mix of casks.
Yeah. And then it's a non-age statement whiskey, isn't it? But we can probably assume that we're looking at what, like 3 to 6 years old, something like that, is it?
About 4 to 4.5 years old.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So we're aging up as we get older, obviously. So the seasonals are a really good way of seeing how we're developing as a distillery, and seeing how our older spirits are maturing better with the cask, etc. But yeah, lovely dram. Should we get tucked in? Cheers, everybody.
I'm getting tucked in. Cheers. I mean, you definitely get some of the port cask come through, don't you? It's got that sort of round red fruit kind of note to it. Totally. That I mean, I'm a sucker for red wine and port casks anyway. I mean, I don't like it when it's too forceful, but I love that sort of berry influence on malt whiskey. I think it is really nice.
Totally. So with this one, like Lochlea as a brand, we're not kind of told this are the tasting notes and go out and tell customers that's what they should taste. We all have different palates, right? We don't all like the same food. So we all taste things slightly differently. So we, as a team, once there's a new release, go away, do our homework, and write your own tasting notes. So usually for me, it takes about 3 drams before I can come up with my tasting notes. However, with this release, it was almost instant.
So when you say 3 drams, do you mean on 3 separate occasions, or you mean you have to get the 3rd glass of whiskey before you?
3rd glass of whiskey. Terrible homework, isn't it? So yeah, it was almost so chunky bit of malted bread, lightly toasted, lots of butter and lots of strawberry jam. That's basically exactly what I taste. So you're getting.
I like this. I like this type of creating tasting notes where you're sort of creating an entire scene rather than like 3 or 4 sort of sporadic components. You've got to build them into a situation. Exactly. I love that a lot. Like, I don't know, for an Isla one, it could be like a fisherman putting like TCP on his thumb on his burning fishing boat kind of thing,
Exactly, or his charred bit of toast, exactly.
Yeah. But so what is it? Jam on buttered toast? Is that what you said?
Yep. So if I said it, I say hunters because I'm obviously Scottish, but that, please ignore me. Hundreds of butter. So yeah, lightly toasted malted bread, because the toasting's giving you that, and the malted bread's giving you that lovely kind of spice that you're getting from the STR, but it's very subtle. Then there's a real kind of creamy butteriness that you get in this dram as well. And then obviously hundreds of red berry fruits. But in my opinion, so harvest first crop, it was like fresh strawberries and cream, almost like those sweets Campinos that you used to get when you were wee.
Yeah.
Whereas as it's gotten older, it's now more buttery and like not fresh fruit. It's that kind of like jammy strawberry flavour. So perfect for this kind of weather. And obviously strawberries is a very big summer flavour in Britain, isn't it?
Well, listen up. Because I obviously taste the whiskies, and I make the little tasting cards we send out. And so I do tasting notes, and then there's a section we do called great with, like what to pair it with. So you can assess how well I did this month. So taste like I did red grapes, butterscotch,
Brilliant.
just like, I don't know, and marmalade. I think there's a kind of orangey note to it. Although, as you like, you said before, you need 3 whiskies before you kind of warm up to exactly what it is, and probably should say warm up, but yeah, but like also, I mean, you must find this like just tasting it on different occasions, depending on what you've been eating or the time of the day and all that kind of stuff. It can change it wildly, right?
100%. Temperature outside as well is a big one for me.
Yeah. So that was the taste like, and then great with did strawberries and cream.
Brilliant.
Perfect. I mean, this is like it's like Wimbledon whiskey, isn't it?
Exactly. That's it. Total British flavour.
Orange club biscuit. Orange club biscuit.
Yeah.
Cool. Club biscuits, the orange ones. And then finally, and then a New York sour cocktail, which is it's a whiskey sour, but with a little splash of red wine in it.
Love that. 100%. Love that. Yep. No, spot on. Yeah, lovely dram. And just a wee bit on the colour of the labels. So there is a reason why we decided to go for this kind of bright, kind of pink coral colour. So if you follow us on our social media, it's a prime example. So our owner, Neil, was just doing a wee walk around of the distillery because they live on site. And if anyone's ever heard of the term red sky at night, shepherd's delight, that's like a really big farming phrase in Scotland, especially in Ayrshire, because you've got these beautiful red sunsets, which means you're going to have a nice dry day the next day. And you got a beautiful image of it from the distillery. So the stills and this lovely pink background, pink sky in the background. But another reason is because of the type of soil that we've got at Lochlea. It's quite a dense clay soil. So when we harvest the barley, there's actually this like pink hue in the soil once it's been harvested. So that's the reasons. They're the 2 reasons why we decided to label harvest this colour. But also it just coincidentally worked with the tasting.
Totally works with the tasting notes for sure. Absolutely, and that's important. Sometimes like the color of a label can actually be quite a powerful cue to people as to what something tastes like. Color's so important. So yeah, it works perfectly, and there's actually a legitimate story to back it up. So yeah,
exactly. And also all of our whiskies at Lochlea are non-chill filtered, and it's all natural color. So the color is only coming from the cask. We don't add any color into our whiskies whatsoever.
Nice, right? That's brilliant. Thank you. If you can hang around for a few minutes, it'd be great to for you to stick around while Lee talks a bit about Penderyn. And if you've got any questions or comments, I know you don't have the whiskey, but you've got whiskey. Then by all means chip in. All right.
Perfect. Yep. Amazing. Cheers,
Thanks.
folks.
Hello.
Hi Lee. How you doing, mate?
How you doing? Good to see you.
Good.
It's been. I was trying to think when the last time was. I think it was 2 years almost exactly.
That
it was
sounds about right. It was
2 years in
Port,
August.
was it Portwood we did? Or
We did
Sherrywood?
Portwood. Yeah.
Portwood.
We did Portwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we've just been talking about port casks with Emma.
Yeah, I know.
But no
Feels
port
like
casks this time round with Penderyn.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the Lochlea was going to be today, but I got the wrong one out of my cupboard.
Oh, I didn't
I had
realise
the
you had
Ploughing
some there.
edition in my cupboard.
Yeah. Which one have you
I was
got?
kind of just hoping. I was kind of betting the Ploughing, the heated.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. So it's great. It's great stuff. I love Lochlea. I've tried. Yeah, you've been doing fantastic work. I was just trying to hope that I had the right one that you were going to taste this evening.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll see you at a show sometime soon, and I can get you.
Yeah. I'll play with you with plenty of Penderyn to take home.
Perfect.
Good. Yeah, it's great to see you, Tristan.
Yeah, you too, Lee. Thanks for joining. You've got a massive gold bottle next to you there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't know how well it's shown in the camera. Penderyn is known for its tall bottles which don't fit on bars, which always annoy people I speak to in the trade. Never ends up in the sort of right spot because they're going to put it to the side. But yeah, we like our tall bottles.
The Jerez bottle, it kind of looks like a sort of nightclub serve, doesn't it? That you'd expect to get kind of in a bucket of ice with
it's quite different. Then we got
euros,
and then we got the reverse on the sort of tin. It's black with the gold dragon, which is nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a split opinion. The bottle when it was released, I would say that even internally.
Yeah. Well, you've released a lot of stuff now. You've got to kind of cover all bases, haven't you? And this is the base you've covered. Where, like, if you'd partnered with a rapper on a whiskey. Oh dear. So I mean, a little bit like Emma, really. It'd be great to sort of get the kind of Penderyn elevator pitch, because, like I say, we featured you before. Everyone should go back and watch that video. But I think things have changed a little bit for you guys anyway. I gather you've got yet another distillery.
So I think last time we were talking about Llandudno, and this time we're talking about Swansea, right?
Yeah.
I'll give a sort of truncated history, and then a little bit about where we're going, and kind of the big sort of two developments last year for us. So Penderyn, obviously a distillery from Wales. We were the first single malt distillery in Wales for 100 years. There hadn't been a distillery in Wales a legal distillery in Wales for 100 years before Penderyn started. So we're about almost coming up to our sort of 24th birthday in September. Really one of the early adopters in the terms of the world whiskey, outside the sort of traditional countries. So we released our first whiskey back in 2004, which was, as many of you know, our Madeira cask whiskey, under the supervision of Dr. Jim Swan, who served as our master distiller and master blender up until his passing. Since then we've been traveling the world, trying to educate people on world whiskey and create a different style of whiskey which can fit in and not necessarily compete in terms of what is already out there in the market, but create our own identity for Welsh whiskey. One of the ways we did this was introduce a unique still, our Faraday still, which does a single distillation and creates a really unique, light, fruity, and sort of cream toffee spirit. And the other way is being very playful with cask finishes, especially as a non-age statement distillery. In the early days, we needed to play with the cask and get the best out of the wood to get the best out of our spirit. And we've been very successful with that. I always go back to the fact we've stuck with a Madeira finish as our house style of whiskey. And you look across the board, you don't see, I don't think, any other distillery in the world was sort of stuck with that as a house style. What we wanted was people to taste our whiskey and say, that's Penderyn. I know that is exactly Penderyn. Since then, you can find Welsh whiskey in about 50 different countries across the world. I think we're topping out about 50. Since then, we've expanded our original site in the village of Penderyn, which is in the National Park of the Brecon Beacons. We couldn't exactly expand production there. It's very hard to get planning permission being inside a national park. So what we did was we opened a new distillery up in Llandudno in North Wales to really get a connection with North Wales as well. When you look at the geography, especially the road geography of Wales, it's near impossible to get from the south to the north without taking incredible sort of detours. So there's always been a sort of disconnect. So having that sort of connection with North Wales is very nice to have a sort of on the ground presence. So that's been going 3 years now. We just don't have 3-year-old whiskey from it. I think September, I can't remember the exact date that we'll have our first barrel ready to go, but it is this year coming. Last year we opened our new site in Swansea at the same scale as what we got in Penderyn, so really sort of amping production. And the other big thing from last year was finally, after many years of dealing with lots of little regulations, is getting a GI status for the term single malt Welsh whiskey. So that covers a couple of things. So it means that everything has to be mashed, fermented, distilled, matured, and then a big one for us is bottled in Wales. And that last one, while many GIs are really about protecting sort of quality, and this is about protecting quality, but that last one, for us is really good because it's about protecting jobs inside Wales. So many of the jobs in the whiskey industry come in that sort of bottling and packaging side, and having that little sort of caveat, put into the GI has protected the jobs in sort of South Wales, especially in our sort of industrial warehouse. So that's sort of where Penderyn is right now.
So how do you, obviously some of these distilleries are very new. But two of them are very new, really. Obviously, the original one in Penderyn's getting on a little bit now. How in the future are you planning on kind of splitting production between these? Are you going to have certain expressions made at only one distillery, or is everything kind of be made everywhere? Is it all going to get blended somewhere? How does that work?
So, for instance, Llandudno is running peated malt through its stills. So they are going to be different expressions fully. And then with Swansea, we started to fill casks, and it's very much, we're going to have unique expressions coming from there, and we're going to have sort of continuous lines as well. But we've got a lot of time to sort of make decisions and sort of finalize that things. That's one of the lucky things about whiskey, is you can sort of start having fun and then sort of make the big decisions a little bit later. But hopefully what's really exciting is being able to see that first Llandudno whiskey coming out at some point very soon. I only joined. So it'll be a peated expression from Penderyn, which will be very very different for us. We very much went down the peated cask method in our very early days, which has been hugely successful for us, and still some of the most popular sort of lines. But it'll be interesting to see it coming from the spirit this time. Yeah.
And speaking of Jerez, obviously talk a little bit more about that, but I understand that this is the first expression you released that was entirely from pot stills as opposed to the Faraday still. Is that correct?
So there's not entirely from pot stills. So at Penderyn, we have 2 Faraday stills, which produce that very light spirit. And we also have a pair of traditional pot stills. And the flavor of the spirit is very similar between the two. But what's really different is this sort of textural difference. You get a much heavier spirit coming from the pot stills, a real point of contrast. And with Jerez, this is the first release where we're using majority spirit from the pot stills. So it's a 75-25 split in there. So 75 from the pots, but still we wanted to keep that bit of Faraday in as the sort of Penderyn signature as well. We sort of couldn't give it up even with this release.
The Faraday still distills to quite high strength, right? I mean, you're just obviously describing it as light, but it's much higher, or considerably higher strength than you would normally get from a second distillation on a pot, right?
Yeah, so it comes out at 90% on average.
Yeah, so you really kind of
89 to 92, and then you sort of mix it together, and we're looking at sort of 90 when it's kind of mixed together. But when I say light, it's light in body. It's not very oily. The spirit coming out is very light in that sort of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, that is higher strength than you would obviously normally get for a single malt in Scotland.
Yes, yeah. And if it wasn't for that still, we would never be able, you wouldn't be able to pull off a pot at that sort of that height. It would just be
no.
Do so.
Yeah.
It's very much that unique still, which allows us to do it.
Yeah. So what strength does it come off the pot stills at?
74 usually when it's sort of mixed together. So 70 to 70.
Oh, when they're mixed together, yeah.
Yeah, so that's our cut point's about 70, 76, and then when you sort of mix it together, it kind of averages about 74 coming off.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty high as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite high, but we wanted to make sure the flavor profile was not too different between the pots.
Too different, otherwise you're kind of making 2 completely different whiskies, and then you've got to kind of somehow reconcile that in the product.
That through line. So especially when Ista's playing about with the barrels in the blending room, she's got that sort of through line. It's more about being able to now adjust the texture of our whiskey, to give something a bit more body, give something a bit less body by sort of including more or less of the pot and the Faraday.
And is it pots in? Sorry, another way of asking it. Is it Faraday only in the original distillery, or is it pots everywhere else?
No. So it's 2 Faradays at Penderyn and 1 pair of pots at Penderyn. Then we have 1 Faraday in Llandudno, and then we have two Faradays and 1 pair of pots in Swansea as well.
Okay, so you are continuing it throughout. Yeah. Interesting.
Good.
All right, cool. What else can you tell us about this particular whiskey then? Casks, it's bourbon casks, right?
So this is Jerez. So just give you a bit of background on this. This is part of a series of limited batch whiskies we released called the Icons of Wales. And the idea with this series of whiskies is it's sort of more or less a yearly release where we're doing kind of 2 things. One thing we're doing is we're giving Ista a bit of space to kind of experiment in terms of sort of flavor profile. She produces the same stuff, all the time, and it gives her a chance to play about with new ideas, slightly more experimental casks, and kind of test the waters. But the other thing with each edition, what we do is we get to celebrate a different story from Wales, a different sort of aspect of Welsh life, a Welsh figure, event in Welsh history, or what we like to pick and choose, especially the sort of small amounts of Welsh whiskey history. And what that does is, as we sort of travel the world and we're talking about our whiskey, we're also sort of talking more about Wales and kind of making those connections. So especially with these whiskies, we like to make sort of international collections as well. So hiraeth is a Welsh word, which is supposed to really not have a direct sort of translation in any other language. It's a feeling that you have, a feeling of sort of homesickness, a feeling of sort of longing, maybe for something you've lost. And by that, we're sort of talking about the Welsh language as we sort of talk about this whiskey. But in terms of makeup of the whiskey, so 75% of it, as I said, is coming from pot stills, and that is all bourbon cask. That's all bourbon cask. We primarily source our bourbon casks from Buffalo Trace Distillery. We've had the best consistency with these over the years. They're really quality barrels, really quality distillery, and it produces really nice flavors with our sort of base spirit as well. And then the 25% is made up of those STR casks, which, thanks to Emma, I don't have to go through the explanation of what those are, using our Faraday spirit. So you have that sort of Jim Swan signature sort of underlying the whiskey as well. Yeah. Good.
Cool. I've frozen. Can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you have frozen.
Yeah. Okay. That's going to be kind of unnerving for the rest of this. We'll start to wrap it up anyway.
We get tasted the whiskey. So.
I've tasted it.
Okay.
I mean, I've been. You can't see that I'm tasting it because obviously I've
No,
frozen.
you just yeah. It's
I'm
not
just
the best
going loads of it. Yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, I'll tell you what. Since I did this for Emma, I'll do it for you as well. The tasting notes I wrote were cinnamon, fruit loaf, and frangipan. Okay. For me, it's got like a really, and even now when I'm tasting it, it's got this kind of. It's weird because it's obviously bourbon cask. There's no sherry in there, but for me, I do get a little bit of sort of fruit loaf with like sultanas in there. There's something like sort of boozy soaked, sort of almost like trifle base kind of thing to it for me. It's very nice.
Okay. That's really interesting. I mean, for me, with this one, I always pick up on the sort of soft citrus that you get in a lot of our sort of bourbon forward whiskies. But I sort of know what you mean. You get that sort of, that boozy soaked fruit. And, for us, we get a lot of apples and sort of pears out of our base spirit. And that really comes through on the bourbon cask. So, I can sort of imagine that sort of soaked. Some sort of.
I'm just going to try removing myself and come back in again and see what happens. Okay. It might be that everything falls apart and the internet collapses, or it might be that this fixes it. So wish me luck.
We can keep going, Emma. We'll just keep drinking.
I think my camera must have like literally just died because it doesn't appear to be.
I was laughing quite hard there. I was glad I was on mute. It's funny seeing a frozen face while you're still speaking.
It's quite funny seeing you laugh without the noise as well.
Right. Well, look, I'm just going to kind of talk from this dark hole that I found myself in.
It's like 2 minutes now.
Oh no. I'll tell you what I will do since I can do this. I mean, this is the sort of comments we're getting coming in. This is just going back to Lochlea, actually. Henry was saying first fill Oloroso cask from last year. Would that be one of yours, Emma?
Yes, we did a first fill. That was our fallow first crop. That was our first release of fallow, so it was fully matured in Oloroso sherry. Second crop was PX and Oloroso, so it was 55% PX, 45 Oloroso. TBC and what third crop's going to be. So eyes peeled on that one.
There's a question for you here as well. So as you're aiming to do everything in-house, would you ever go down the route of doing your own cooperage?
To be honest, never been asked that question, so not too sure. But I think one thing that we pride ourselves on is having those direct relationships with distilleries, i.e. Maker's Mark, i.e. Miguel Martin and Jerez, i.e. I shouldn't really say that, but Lefroy. So probably not. I'm going to say probably not. But as we're an independent distillery, we can basically change our plans at the drop of a hat, which is a total blessing. So never say never, but at this point, it's never been discussed.
There's a whenever people start talking about distilleries doing everything in house, I always recall this funny story. So everyone will be familiar with Whistle Pig, the brand of rye whiskey from Vermont in America. Now, back in the day, Whistle Pig were actually sourcing their whiskey from Canada, but they now make it themselves. They've got stills. But in addition to that, they also grow their own rye. They don't malt it, I don't think. So they send it away, and it's only a small amount of what they do. But also on the farm, they have maple trees, so they can make their own maple syrup. And they have pigs, right? Now, there's a sort of modern classic American whiskey cocktail called a Benton's Old Fashioned, which is basically like an old fashioned, but you use maple syrup as the sweetener, and you fat wash the whiskey with bacon. So that drink, in theory, you could make the entire cocktail entirely from stuff on that one farm. Pretty cool. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I forgot. This is what made me think of it. They also have oak trees, and they've felled them, and they are turning them into their own barrels. So even the barrel itself will be made on the farm as well.
Amazing. So there's actually a rum distillery in Scotland that's making their own oak barrels, Ninefold, up in Dumfries, down in Dumfries. Sorry, I'll say that when it's down, which is quite exciting. So yeah, hopefully we'll see a wee movement into some more Scottish oak. But I do know it's quite hard to work with from chatting to some folk. It leaks quite a bit, so maybe a bit of work to be done there. But that is very cool.
So Orange Club was a winner with the Lochlea as well, apparently.
Amazing.
We got that on hand at all times. Frequent trips to Wales is to stock up on Penderyn. Pretty cool. And actually, we always try and get whiskeys to sort of somewhat be seasonally representative, but I do think we nailed it tonight. These are both, for me anyway, quite summery drams. What else we got here? We got any taste? No one's given over many tasting notes tonight. I don't know what's going on with that. But
it's the sun.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Maybe it's because they need the third one before they do enough whiskey.
Always hits you a bit harder when it's sunny outside, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Right, cool. Well, look, guys, thanks so much. They're really tasty whiskies, and it's great to hear from you, your insights and expertise on how these things are made. And fascinating to see how both distilleries are evolving and coming of age. So, yeah, brilliant.
Exciting stuff. Brilliant. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Lee. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
All right.
Hopefully see you at a show for a couple of times.
Oh, I just lifted my glass up, but you can't see me.
You're doing it in spirit.
Yeah. All right.
Brilliant.
Good night, everyone.